Hi, this is Rob.e.britt, and I wanted to share an experience that I once had years back when I was about 20. I went caving with my brother and another friend of his. And word of caution, you don't want to go into caves unless you have somebody who is experienced with you, or you're going into a public cave, which is a guided tour or something like that. But my brother does cartography work, which is map making, for those not familiar with that term. And it's kind of a specialized thing that he does, and it's a hobby of his that he does mapping for caves. And I'm not talking about like going into Carlsbad Cavern, and he, did something there actually too. But it's not like he's not going to well-known caves. He's going to caves that are off the beaten track and just known more to the spelunking community, and does maps for those caves. It's kind of an interesting bit of information about my brother Bill. But he and his friend wanted to go to a cave called Peshiburo, which is in Arizona, and I lived in Phoenix at the time, and it was an hour or two north of Phoenix. And we went to the cave, and we went in, there are two ways to get into this particular cave, and we went in what's called a back door, which is an uncommon entrance. And we're going through the cave, which was about 3 hours total from the time we entered to the time that we planned to exit. And we were going out the normal front door. And we got to a point in the middle of the journey where we turned out all the lights. And you just have never experienced darkness as pitch black as being a few hundred feet underground with no lights whatsoever. I mean, it's so dark. I mean, you can't see your hand in front of your face, and it's an expression people use a lot, but in this case it was totally true. Your finger could have been almost poking your eye and you wouldn't even be able to see it. And we went from there and started the ascent up to the front door, and what a point in a cave that is the tightest spot is referred to as a keyhole. So if you can get through the keyhole, you can get through the rest of the cave. There's no other spaces that are such a tight squeeze. And the keyhole for this particular cave was right by the front door, so it would somewhat discourage anybody from going any deeper if they couldn't make it past that. They weren't stuck. Now, we were coming from the back door, and I was slightly larger than the other two guys, and I'm not fat, and at that point I certainly had even less body fat than I do now, but my upper body and lower body, my hips are a little wider. And what happened, halfway through the keyhole I got stuck, and I was at the point similar to an hourglass where the sand drops through, that one grain of sand at a time. That's where my waist was, and my hips were on one side and my shoulders were on the other side, and I was stuck. I couldn't move. We were at the point where you could see the sunlight, so I had the contrast of this pitch black point an hour before, something like that, and actually seeing the sunlight. So it was like day and night, so to speak. And I was stuck, and my brother and the other guy were in front of me, so they couldn't really do a whole lot. They couldn't help try to push me through or anything like that. And it was to the point where they were going to go get help, and I'm not sure what that would have constituted, somebody with a chisel or something to chip away some rocks where I was stuck. But as a last final thing, I dropped trowel, as they say, and smeared mud, because it was kind of a slick area we were at in the cave, and smeared mud on my hips and literally forced my way through that spot so I wouldn't be caught and left there for hours by myself while they went for help. And I managed to squeeze through, and I tore up the skin on the sides of my hips and had a little bit of scratches and some bleeding, whatever. But the point was that I saw daylight and I wasn't going to be stuck. And I did what I had to do to get through that point in my life. Haven't gone caving since, but that's a whole nother story. But what the point of this story, and you know, I really didn't think too much about it at the time, but I'm thinking about it now, is that when you are in a tight spot, there are ways out of it. And sometimes the light is another person, sometimes the light is a goal you have. Sometimes you have a goal and it's in the dark and you need another person to shine the light on that and help you through. And I think a mentor can be just such a light that you, when you're in that spot and you can't get out, you can reach out your hand and a mentor can pull you through and get you to where you need to go. If you're interested in that sort of a mentor, you know, I'm here for you. And I am supported by the PCN and Val Smith and a mastermind group that is unparalleled in my opinion. So if this sounds good to you, check out my website, drop me an email, and I'll be back to you more quickly than you can imagine. Have a great day and try to stay out of the tight spots.